Hello everybody, welcome back to World War II in the Eyes of the Beholder. In today's episode, we will be finishing the Normandy campaign on Omaha Beach, Bloody Omaha. The last episode we talked about the U.S. preparing for this event and the landings and the Mulberry Harbors. Today we will be getting into the dirt and gritty stuff that unfortunately occurred on June 6, 1944. So, let's get into it. Omaha Beach was the most defended beach of all the Normandy beaches. Therefore, this beach was the hardest to take and had the most casualties. This sector, also the smallest sector, was given to the 1st Infantry Division and the 29th Infantry Division. The Germans had just switched divisions, not even a week before June 6, 1944. They replaced a older rundown unit with the 52nd Infantry Division. They were fresh and they were ready for what lay ahead. The bombing that had happened the night before was very unsuccessful, but unfortunately, the bombs had landed off target and did not destroy much. And, even worse, they would not provide any cover from the invading forces. The plan was that the bombs would land on the beach, providing foxholes for the invading troops. But unfortunately, the bombs were off target and they did not disrupt much in the places that they did land. But after a long and horrible boat ride to the shore, the men started to figure out that not only was the beach not bombed, but the strong currents had made them drift off target and into a stronger Omaha Beach defenses. The beaches were split up into sections, with men from the 116th Regiment of the 29th Infantry Division landing at sectors Charlie, Dog, Green, Dog White, Dog Red, and Easy Green. But because of the strong currents, most of the men landed in Easy Green, with some men from the 116th Infantry Division landing in the 1st Infantry Division sectors. The 16th Regiment of the 1st Infantry Division landed at sectors Easy Red, Fox Green, Fox White. When the gates dropped, all hell rained down on these men, from MG-42 nests high up on a cliff. Lieutenant Driver Donald Irwin remembers the day like this. We dropped our ramps to get our troops off, and then all hell did tear loose. We came under intense fire, as did the LCTs to the right and left of us. The men were easy targets. They had almost nothing to hide under. Jonathan Bastable says in his book, Voices from D-Day, he says this: the sea defenses had certainly had the desired effect on D-Day. First, they slowed the attackers, which made them more easier targets for the machine gunners on the cliff, and the machine gunners did not even need to be good shot because their guns were pre-sighted on the obstacles of a couple of clicks of a ratchet, and it was like shooting tin ducks in a fairground. Captain Richard Merrill says, you knew the shortest path was a straight one across the breach. You'd hear zip zip, just the strings of machine gun bullets and automatic weapons. Crisscrossing paths. You're soaking wet, everything was heavy. You tried to time it and run, but you'd fall. You'd run on a dry piece of land and then hit water and immediately tremble, get up and keep going. I don't remember anyone right with me. I was just hoping the others were coming up behind me. There were bodies around in the water, and there were other once you got across. One of the men from my boat, we saw him get hit, tumble, and get up, and we were hollering, keep going, Rusty, keep going. I saw Frank Quarter too, but he was tough to recognize because he'd lost an eye and teeth. I was the first one out. The 7th man was the next one to get across the beach, without being hit. All the ones in between were hit. 2 were killed, and 3 were injured. That's how lucky you had to be. The Americans had a hard time getting ashore. Most of the landing craft ran ashore 50 to 100 meters away from the beach. This meant that men had to wade ashore with water up to their neck while being shot at, and some even drowning because they could not get their heavy gear off. The assault buckles on their assault vests were also faulty, meaning that many men unfortunately drowned. Harold Bumington remembers it like this. In order to get my equipment off, I had to try and unbuckle the life preserver, which was under my arms and going up near my neck. I accidentally squeezed the carbon dioxide capsules and my life preserver pulled my arms up, and I was out of this 6 inches of water that I was in, and I made a perfect target. It was very hard to get off the beach, and once you did, you were met with mauled men dying and constant enemy fire. Many men experienced shell shock. This is where there's so much loud noise and chaos that you go into shock. Private First Class Bessie remembers the big guns well. There was a lot of confusion. The ground was vibrating, just shaking, something awful. You couldn't hear anything, just the big guns and mortars and small arms fire. What I remember was pure hell. The smell of bodies and gunpowder is something I will never get out of my nose. There were guys falling all around me, hollering, and there was no one to help them. I didn't think I'd live through it myself. The objective was to secure the beach. You were not allowed to help dead or wounded men. Some men disobeyed these orders and died because of it. There were a few army medics, but through the chaos, the Germans aimed for the medics. The men would have to survive the battle and not die to get medical attention. Very few survived. The water was turning red. I noticed a GI running, an enemy gunner shot him. One of the aid men moved to help him, and he was shot. I will never forget the medic lying next to the GI and both of them screaming. They both died in minutes. Robert Slaughter. The Germans were ruthless. They would not let any men by. German gunner Ludwig says this: I was surprised to see them falling. I didn't know why. Never having seen a real battle, it didn't shake me to be hurting those men, even though they were my enemies. Even then, in my stupidity, I thought I was only hurting them, not killing them. Regardless, it was a hard and terrifying battle. Private Harold Burmington remembers D-Day like this: regardless, it was a hard and terrifying battle. I got a bullet through the top of my helmet first, then a bullet aimed at my heart hit the receiver plate on my M1 rifle. I waded through the waist-deep water, watching many of my buddies fall alongside me. The water was being shot up all around me, and many bullets ricocheted off the water top of me. Cliss Riggs, who was the assault boat in front of me, went under, shot to death. A little in front of me, I saw Private Robert Dittmar hold his chest and heard him yell, "I'm hit! I'm hit!" I watched him as he continued to go forward. He tripped over a tank obstacle and he fell. His body made a complete turn and he lay sprawled on the damp sand with his head facing the Germans. His face looking forward, he seemed to be suffering from shock and was yelling, "Mother, Mom." As he kept rolling around on the sand, where there were three or four other wounded men dying right near him. Sergeant Bonds got up, shot down in front of me, and Lieutenant Donaldson. Sergeant Robertson had a gaping wound in his upper right corner of his forehead. He was walking crazily in the water without his helmet. Then I saw him get down on his knees and start playing with his rosary beads. At this moment, the Germans cut him in half with their crossfire. Most of the tanks did not make it ashore. They were either blown up in the water by Germans or sank because their floaties did not work. And for the ones that got ashore, there were huge targets and were quickly blown to hell. Out of the 32 tanks from the 71st Tank Battalion, 27 sank from linkage, leaving only 5 support vehicles. Most of these did not make it up the hill. At 8:30 a.m., all further reinforcements were halted and the bombardment resumed. This was because of the lack of clearing of the beach obstacles. By late morning, only around 600 men had made it to higher ground with less German fire. By 12, the bombardment had helped destroy some bunkers, and the Germans started to get very low on ammunition. More reinforcements were sent to help. Because of the bombardment and the lack of German ammunition, the Americans were able to clear out some pillboxes and the first German defenses. On D-Day +2, they were at it again, clearing obstacles. But less resistance occurred. On D-Day +3, the objectives of Omaha Beach were complete. The forces would then move up to meet the other Allied forces, connecting all 6 by June 12, 1944. The Normandy landings were the largest seaborne invasion in history, with nearly 5,000 landing and assault craft, 289 assault escort vehicles, and 277 minesweepers participating. Nearly 160,000 troops crossed the English Channel on D-Day, with 875 men disembarking by the end of June. Allied casualties on the first day were at least 10,000, with 4,414 confirmed dead. The Germans lost just over 1,000 men, with losses on the Omaha front being over 2,000. If you landed on beach, the calculations of you surviving was 35%. The beach was the hardest to take, but the sacrifice of those men will never be forgotten. Because of them, the Allies secured a foothold in Europe, and this made it possible to take the rest of Europe and end the war. May the sacrifice of these men, not only the men from Omaha, but all the men who died, ally or not, they were all humans. They all fought for the country. May they rest in peace, and may we never forget. If you liked this video or you like this type of content, please like, share, and subscribe. I really hope that you like this video and that you learned something from it. Our goal here at World War II and the Eyes of the Beholders is to teach history in a fun way, and that we'll never forget it. I also have another channel called World War II Productions, World War II IEP Productions. Link in description. You can go ahead and subscribe there if you like to see World War II skits. I hope you enjoyed this video, and I'm looking forward to seeing you again in the next chapter of World War II in the Eyes of the Beholder.